Snacka Kubernetes med Conoa.
So, good afternoon, everyone. We are on a Tuesday, on a special time, on a special subject this week. And with us we have Crystal from Sysdig and from the US. And I'm hoping we didn't get you up too early, Crystal.
I managed just fine this morning. Thank you for making this a special meeting time for us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so today we're going to deep dive into some security-related things. So Sysdig, you guys are doing a yearly report, right?
Yeah, I wrote a special report this year. So we do one every year with global information. And this year we decided to do a special report just for the Nordics with some security facts for you on your region.
Yeah, so we're going to keep this session, focused on that report and some of the findings come out of that. And with us we have Kenneth as well. So Kenneth, you're awake?
Yes, thank you for having me, and I'm here to share my view as well.
Okay, so before we get started, Crystal, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and what your work has been, on this report?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Crystal Morin. I'm a senior cybersecurity strategist at Sysdig. I've been here for a little over 3 years. I started my career in the military. I was a translator and worked in intelligence and national security. Now here at Sysdig, I have the pleasure of writing these amazing reports. I go through customer usage data to see how they're using our tools and how they're defending their systems against threat actors. And this year, like I said, I was able to gather some data on organizations in the Nordics region and put together a report with some information about how security is happening there. I'm really excited to share it with all of you.
Cool. This is going to be really interesting. And before we kind of kick this off, I'll just remind everyone that we do have a Q&A in the chat. So if there's anything specific that you come up with, put your questions in there, and then we'll see at the end of this and see how much time we have left and if we can get a few questions in there as well. So this year's report, the 2025 one, there's a couple of things that you're kind of hovering about. I think speed is one of them. Things are moving much faster. There's much higher degree of automation. And of course, AI is everywhere. Can you tell us a little bit what you think stood out most in the year, in the report this year?
Yeah, so for me, what I found interesting was actually the number of cloud users in the Nordics region. I thought it would be slightly lower for single cloud usage. It was 77% in the region for organizations in those countries. I expected multi-cloud or hybrid to be a bit higher just because of EU sovereignty laws. And I imagine over the next couple years, because of all of these regulations coming into play in the region, that we'll probably see an increase in the usage of multi-cloud and hybrid environments to improve that resiliency and applicability with EU data sovereignty requirements.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, hybrid cloud in the Nordics was only 5%, which I don't recognize either. Kenneth, what's your view on that? I think we have a much higher figure than that. At least amongst the clients that we tend to work with.
Yeah, I think so. And Chris, I could correct if I'm wrong, but I guess some of the hybrid customers you might not see in the report and this investigation. Because we do have a lot of on-prem customers that we are working with that are using the cloud as well. So I think the details are could vary a bit.
Yeah, of course. I mean, every report's different. It depends on where you're grabbing the data from. So this is just what I saw, but I fully expect it to continue to change.
Yeah, and I would definitely say that among the larger companies and some of the public sector, I think this is higher. Maybe on an average, that probably is correct. But it's an interesting observation that a lot of people are still in just one cloud, I think. Another thing that you're pointing out, in the report is that the response times have gone down significantly. People are reacting much faster to threats and things that's happening, within minutes even. What is your view on what's the reason behind those figures are actually being improved?
So I think a lot of organizations are realizing that automated response is required to be able to respond to threat actors who are also using automated scripts to amplify their attacks and go a little bit faster. So I think this speed improvement that we're seeing on the defender side comes from reducing latency. So using AI to speed up the analysis and data context evaluations, and also using those automated response actions. If something's happening and you have a detection alert for it, you have a policy in place that says this container needs to be killed or paused, and do that without having to put human hands onto the event. I think fast alert delivery is also a requirement and something that we're seeing that's becoming more and more common for security vendors that organizations are using. They have to alert their customers as quickly as possible that something's happening. When we see a container on average, I think 60% of containers live for 1 minute or less. You have 60 seconds to do something before that container spins back down. And if attacker is able to access that container and they can move laterally before it dies, you need to be able to follow them. So at Sysdig, for example, our detection analytics alert customers in about 2 seconds after something happens. So if you have that automated response in play, something's happening in your container, you see that 2 seconds after it happens, and then you're able to automatically do something to quarantine that container before an attacker is able to move further.
Do you think that this is kind of a given going forward? People have to automate and have to use AI in order to be and stay secure?
Yeah, absolutely. I know in my past experiences and friends that work in the community and whatnot too, there are other tools that we've used that it takes 7 to 15 minutes or several hours to run a query, not for proactive detection alert, right? But when you're hunting for something, like this week, this React 2 shell, well, the end of last week, that vulnerability that came out, if you're starting to look in your environment to see if you've been impacted by something, you don't want to have to wait minutes or hours to be able to get results back so you can continue on your investigation. So we're wanting this to happen much, much faster so we can get to the root of cause.
Yeah. And Kenneth, you're being the CTO of ProArc here in Sweden. AI, I know that you're discussing a lot of AI, but is security also on the table from a lot of the clients that you're talking to?
Yeah, definitely. And also we need to separate the discussion when you talk about the security and AI in the same sentence. Because one area is to use AI to detect threats and respond to threats and find vulnerabilities. And the other is AI security when you talk about how to trick and how to hack AI. But I think in this context, you're referring to actually using AI to respond to security threats and vulnerabilities. And I think, as Chris said, and as a response to your question, we need to have some kind of automatic response measurements in place to have a chance for the bad guys, because the bad guys are using AI to automatically attack you. So we need to have similar tools to respond to this. So it's like a tech game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on that note, Crystal, do you see any specific pitfalls around using AI in security tools, or things like governance and exposure, and what is there any specific considerations you need to take using AI in security tools?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like Kenneth said, there is AI in security and there is securing AI. So there's two different sides to the spectrum in this world that we're playing in right now. But AI is being used in marketing and in sales and everything else too. And then the security team needs to make sure that that's safe and taken care of. As far as using AI for security practices, I think one of the pitfalls is using it as a chatbot. That works for marketing or for drafting emails, right? When you're just trying to go back and forth and improve something that you've already written or that you want to write to send out to customers. But using AI as a chatbot when you're working in security operations, that's not going to give you the appropriate return on investment. It's not going to make anything faster. It's just like when you're chatting with one of your coworkers that's sitting at the desk next to you, right? You're going back and forth with a chatbot and trying to figure out the answer to the security incident. It's not really going to help you with that speed aspect, which I think is the best part of using AI in security. Instead, AI needs to be integrated into the workflows, like what attackers are doing. They're using AI to write their scripts, and then they're using it to autonomously modify their attacks in real time while it's in a victim environment. We need to do the same thing with integrating AI into our security practices so that it's doing this contextual analysis during investigations for us. And there's no back and forth. We need to make AI autonomous in security to be able to get a return on investment, I think.
Yeah, and one of maybe my observations, and I think you agree with me, Kenneth, as well, is if you're looking at a lot of the security tools and the AI and finding things and anomalies, etc. There's a lot of services now that are only delivered out of different cloud vendors, for example. And we talked about hybrid not being that high in Sweden yet, but I think this needs to be happening on-prem as well as in cloud and everywhere. We can't just have this in a cloud service somewhere.
And that's where it can be helpful, right? Like that adding context together when you have multiple cloud environments or a cloud environment with an on-prem environment. There is a very small limited space where those environments and what's happening communicate together. Like for some on-prem edge environments, they're not communicating with every other part of your organization. So that's definitely a place where you can consider using AI to try to help you, as long as you're doing it securely, like Kenneth said, making sure that AI you're using is actually safe.
Yeah, and but I was actually gonna say that that I actually like the chatbot capabilities in the existing environment as well, because I like to ask, okay, give me the top 10 problems I have to deal with right now, and give me the top 5 executive briefs. So I kind of like that aspect as well. But I totally get what you're saying. So I just want to say that I'm personally a fan of the chat capabilities as well in your solution.
Yeah, no, I agree. We have some customers that take Sysdig Sage, our AI capability, and every morning that's how they start their day. So, like grab your cup of coffee and sit down and okay, Sage, like what happened over the last 24 hours? Now you have 5 priorities to go and look at. But there's another use case with Sysdig Sage that I really like for vulnerability management. And like I said, that workflow integration, where it's basically a translator, which we can appreciate as different first languages, right? Sysdig Sage takes a vulnerability in your environment on the security side and racks and stacks what the most effective way to mitigate that security vulnerability is, and then basically translates it into this is everything the developer needs to do to be able to fix this security vulnerability, make it as safe as possible, as quickly as possible, and then puts it into a Jira ticket. So instead of the security analyst trying to figure out how to define the appropriate steps for the developer to take, all they have to do is put it through Sysdig Sage and send it over. And now it goes from security language to developer language without that struggle of the two people trying to figure out what they're each talking about. Because one's talking in terms of security issues and one's talking in terms of what do I need to fix in the code. So I think that workflow integration is amazing.
Yeah, and that is actually one of my favorite features because I see it as a learning, it's a way to learn because as I mean, understanding those CVs is like, yeah, you have to be really, really skilled to understand how it will affect you. And having that support built into the workflow is great in my opinion.
That's that speed aspect comes in too. So
yeah.
On that note a little bit as well, I think, what I'm hearing from a lot of clients is that, tool sprawl, basically, you have a lot of different tools doing different things. And especially when we, compare the old traditional world with VMs and containers, they tend to have, in many cases, different tools doing this. Is AI going to help us as well to make sense of more data coming from more places?
yeah, well, and it's a perpetual issue, I guess, too, because AI is also making an insane amount of data on top of trying to analyze all that data. But yeah, I think that's an amazing use for AI, is being able to use it for data analysis. That's literally what it's made from. It's made from machine learning basics, right? And it can analyze tons of lines of code or all of the reports that you throw at it or your logs for security analysis much faster than any human can. So yeah, we're getting more data by using AI too, but it can still analyze it faster than I can.
So I think we're all agreeing that 2026, we're going to not see less AI, we're going to see more.
Of course, yes, absolutely.
Okay. So another thing that you're highlighting in the report as well is identity as the new perimeter. What do you mean with that?
I mean, it's not just us, but any survey or vendor report that you see out, a lot of incidents start with an identity, either a person's account because they were spearphished or a machine account like an API or something like that that was inadvertently exposed to the internet. And it's vulnerable, and now it allows a means for an attacker in. So identity security is extremely important to securing your broader environment because it is the fastest and easiest way for an attacker to get into your environment initially.
Yeah, I actually heard a presenter that has been working at some American security government thingy, and he told me the hacker doesn't break into your system; the hacker logs in to your system.
Yep.
And that's something to think about.
Absolutely. Yep. 100%.
Yeah, and Kenneth, we, Conoa Pro work there very much focused on containers as well. We see a lot of different, machines logging in and out and API calls and things. Is this a problem that you hear from our clients as well that they're looking at and figuring out how to contain this?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely a struggle. I think identities are probably one of the greatest struggles, again, with just that speed aspect. And identities create so much data so quickly. Again, everything just kind of melds together. But it's differentiating between, are you, Kenneth, actually logging in? And is this your normal day-to-day behavior? Or is this somebody else using your environment because they're not an IP in Stockholm. They're coming out of somewhere in the US instead. So being able to pick up on those anomalies for human users and for machine service identities too. They have normal behaviors. It's trying to figure out what the anomalies are and honing in on those.
Yeah, I actually had an incident myself when I was on vacation in Spain. I couldn't access any of my systems because they thought I was not, you're not logging in from Stockholm. This must be a security breach. So, yeah.
Good. They were
So
doing it
it
right
worked.
then.
Yeah, it worked.
I think this is a place where, again, we can bring in an AI workflow for security too, to autonomously build guardrails for us as well, right? Like that worked. You are not where you're supposed to be. But with agentic AI, we can add some parameters and allow these autonomous systems to kind of make these changes for us. If you say you're going to Spain, then it can pick that up, and allow you to still log in because it knows you're going to be going somewhere else. But
Next year, Kenneth, you're going to have an AI agent keeping track of where your credit card is being used and where your phone is, and then it'll let you log in or not.
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
it would be a fairly valid thing to check my calendar. Does it say vacation in Spain or not?
One of the interesting things that I'll note too, and this kind of goes back to that cloud adoption that we were talking about at the very beginning, was in this research, we identified risky users for human and service accounts. And a risky human account would be no MFA enabled, and they have administrator access, right? That's not something that we want to see, or the account's not being used regularly in the last 60, 90 days. Then we consider that a risk. And I found no risky human users in the Nordics region for the organizations that I looked at. I'm not saying that identity security is perfect there. I'm sorry. But what I do see this as those on-prem and hybrid environments, those are much easier to secure as far as identities go when you're using on-premise environments. And then in terms of cloud, that's 77% of single cloud users. And then there's those multi-cloud users as well. The use of an SSO login like Okta, that third-party gate that you're putting up, it gives you a limited amount of time to log into your cloud environment. Using something like that takes away those number of users. It looks as if there's no users in your organization who have access to your cloud service provider. In all reality, there's plenty of them, but adding extra layers of identity security definitely help reduce your risk of breaches through identities.
Yeah, so no one's user is using admin123 as their password anymore to any systems, right?
I hope
No
so.
one. Kenneth, you're not doing it, right?
How did you know my password?
No, okay. So another interesting fact, I think, as well. I mean, we're coming from an open source company, and we've been, working with open source for a long time. But you're also highlighting open source as one of the important factors in security, and especially Finland is being mentioned, which maybe is not a surprise since Linux is coming out of Finland. But can you comment a little bit what you see about open source and a lot of new security tools, especially in cloud, that they are being actually open source based, and the future of open source in this space?
Yeah, I think open source security is the key to governance regulation, which is very important in the EU. Being able to use open source security tools, there's no black boxes. You know what's happening under the hood, because you can look and see that how these security tools are functioning. And you can control the data that's produced yourself. You can self-host it within EU infrastructure, deploy it on-prem. You don't have to rely on the security vendor alone to manage that tool for you. So I just think it gives a lot of flexibility, and that's definitely preferred in the EU, to be able to use a security tool as you need it, where you need it, and have full control of the data that it's taking in and out.
I mean, do we, and this is a question to both of you, do we think that open source is becoming almost a necessity to keep up with the bad actors? Or, the speed of development, the number of people, as you said, that can check the code and, add contributions to it, etc. Is that becoming more important now?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, the more people you have supporting a project publicly like that, the faster it's going to evolve. We've seen that with our tool Falco. Some of the add-ons that people make are just fascinating, and the tools that they're creating built on Falco and then adding AI capabilities on top of it. It's just amazing. And somebody builds it, and then other people have other ideas, and they're able to help improve on it and everything too. I guess one of the risks with something being open source and being public on GitHub is the threat actors can see it too, right? So they know what they're up against. But when we're able to, again, implement that autonomous response, then we can stop them. It's a game of cat and mouse, but I much prefer working with open source because we can all work together. There's nothing hidden, and I love that.
Yeah, and I
Kenneth,
can.
do you see the same? Do you see the same kind of view from our clients here in the Nordics? I mean, do they see the world in the same light, so to speak?
Yeah, I would actually add on top of what Crystal ended with. For me, it's all about the openness and not necessarily the speed or anything. And it's about today, unfortunately, more and more people, organizations, and countries are talking about sovereign. So I cannot pronounce it. Sovereign.
Sovereignty.
Yeah. So yeah.
Sovereign.
Okay, good. And we talk about supply chain management and actually trusting the software that they're using. And using an open source software is all about transparency and actually trusting the software you're using. So I think that for me that is a most important aspect.
You said two of my favorite words, trust and transparency. I love
Okay, great. And the third one I couldn't pronounce.
They all go, it's all pretty much the same. They all go.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about technology and AI and open source and so on, but what does leadership and culture play in this? Processes, mindset. How do we work? How important is that? And is that something that you've looked at in the report as well?
So I think with that, this is something we talk about a lot, and we at Sysdig, our CISO is actually from Germany. So I appreciate, again, he's all about the sovereignty and everything too. And we call it the assume breach mindset, right? And that kind of helps you with that need for speed, driving the speed of your security response. But I mean, we've been saying this for a decade at least, that just assume you've been breached or you're going to be breached. It's not if, but when it's going to happen. And being able to, this has only more recently happened, being able to measure security, I think, is incredibly important and helpful. And over the last couple of years since I've been writing these reports and trying to make these statistics that do help measure security maturity, looking at organizations' response times or the number of manual processes they have and discussing how they can move that from manual to autonomous. I think that's really going to help us move the needle and continue to improve our security processes. Assume you're breached and then try to make things measurable, because that's going to help you find where you're falling short, and where you need to make improvements, and you can track that improvement over time.
Yeah, Kenneth, do you have any comments on that one, or do you agree, or do you think technology is king, and we can skip processes and mindset and how people work and organizations and internal politics and everything that we kind of run into every day?
If we skip
Well,
the people, then Kenneth isn't going to have a job, right?
yeah, but I'm always a tech guy, so processes is not my strongest side. So, but yes, I totally agree with what Crystal said.
Yeah, and I think this is, I mean, it's not in the report, but I think this is one of the things that we might be struggling a little bit with extra in the Nordics, because we are, we like to agree and we like to, think about our, policies, and, we're not that fast to change things. And I think you need to have strong processes, you need to have strong requirements and goals, and, what you want to achieve, but you also need to be able to change them. And so change management, I think, revisit and go back and check, do we actually have the right policies, or should we tweak them? I think we're a little bit slow on that in the Nordics. I don't think that was in the report, but that's my
Yeah,
observation.
yeah, and just to be clear, I will say that I'm not good at processes, but I totally agree that processes are probably even more important with when it comes to security, because you can have great software and great tech in place, but if you don't have the processes in place, and if you don't know how to use the tools in the right way, then they are pretty useless. So I would go so far to say that processes is more important than having the right tech.
Yeah, and finding the right balance, right? I mean, we can close down any system, so nothing can come in and out, but that's usually not a very well-functioning system. So finding that right balance, I think, is one of the keys that is super important to do enough security where it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And that you can just get from regular assessments, constantly trying to make improvement. Are you running a pen test in your environment once a year or twice a year? What do those results look like? Are they the same every time, or are you actually making changes to reduce some of the risk that comes up? And there's tons of security frameworks that you can use to evaluate yourself year over year and figure out what you can do better. But yeah, security is a process that never stops, and there's always something to do.
Probably one of the good things with EU as well, where we have a lot of regulations now, which everyone thinks is hard, and there's a lot of work going into them, but they're very much aimed on building those processes and making sure that you're actually testing things and have a way back if you get compromised.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and I like what you say. I like what you said about this being a non-stop process, because it's one thing to set up a system and just, well, okay, everything is in place, it's all green boxes, but you need to have some kind of compliance reports going on to see, has something changed since we approved it last time.
Yeah, that's the thing. Compliance is just, when you do an audit, that's one small look at one point in time. But like we said, with the way containers are constantly changing, and now we have AI integrated into different aspects of our organization, and so these data sets are changing. Well, what kind of information is in that data set? And is it continuing to stay compliant with keeping users' data, personal data, safe? Looking at compliance at just one point in time isn't good enough, because that very next second, if someone's information is added into a data set, or there's new open source tools that are being added, we need to make sure that we're constantly checking our compliance posture.
Yeah. Okay, so we're at the end of the year. Christmas is coming up, and I know that there's a lot of companies, they're closing this year, but they're also trying to figure out what they're going to do next year. Budget, people, processes, everything. If you could give one or two advice of, what should we be looking at or focusing at from a security perspective next year, what would that be, Crystal?
I think this whole conversation is kind of discussed and insinuated what my preferences are, but automating processes, like I said, containers move and spin up and down fast. So anything that you can automate to keep pace with that is going to be better than making things manual. That continuous compliance that we were just talking about, I think, is incredibly important for the Nordics region, and focusing on speed and context. Use AI, your morning chatbot ask, to figure out what your priorities are. Use it to gather data from all across your environments to try to understand incidents much faster. Use it to your advantage. That's what I would say for next year.
Did you tick all of those boxes now, Kenneth, for next year?
Yeah, of course.
Anything to add or reflect on that you think is specific for us here in the Nordics, Kenneth?
I would like to make it even simpler. When evaluating tools out there, I would consider finding a tool that solves as many of your use cases as possible, because the less tools you have, the more easy it will be to understand them and to really make use of them. For one example, the thing I like with Sysdig is that you can run the tool in the cloud, but maybe more important for a lot of our larger customers is that you can also run it on-prem. One example would be, there's a lot of different tools out there. You have image scanning tools, you have runtime security tools, you have identity tools, but having a tool, using the same tool when doing the image scanning as when doing the runtime security, will make your reports correlate much easier, and you could make sense of what you're actually finding. Because if you have one tool making image scanning, another tool doing runtime security, it will be a mess trying to make sense of your findings. But if you have one tool with consistent report formats, that will simplify a lot of things when making your decision and when you want to automate things as well.
Yeah, and back to making things measurable, and how are we doing on security? Are we improving or are we getting worse? Or where are we on the journey? And do we have differences in different teams and in different parts of the organization as well? I agree on that one. I think this is one thing that we hear a lot as well, that you tend to have a lot of different tools in different parts of the organization, and it's very hard to kind of compare the results from one tool with another one, basically.
Yeah, again, that data. And I think that's happening right because of the addition of AI. So now all of these new tools, or even tools we're already using, have AI capabilities. So now it feels like you have to have identity AI tool and a runtime detection AI tool and compliance AI tool. We did this years ago, and we had the same conversation about consolidating and getting things back together. So it's almost like it's starting to happen again because of the addition of AI and agentic AI. So it's take a step back, make sure you're doing what you need to do, and keep all of your data and all of your information together to make your life easier.
Okay, so I've asked a lot of questions. Kenneth, do you have any final questions before we close this session off?
Yeah, but obviously this must be a super fun work you're doing, and doing this research and compiling these reports. And I know we were talking about the Nordics, but I'm just curious, was it if you look at your global report, was it something that surprised you, or was it something you got excited about, or something that you didn't expect compared to your other yearly reports?
I would say I didn't look at this for the Nordics in particular, but for global, there's two things. One is the vast number of machine identities in comparison to human identities, tens of thousands more. There was one environment, for example, that had like 500,000 machine service accounts to maintain. That was shocking, because I'm sure a majority of those are unused and can be taken out, and that would reduce a significant amount of risk, which, like we said, identity is one of the number one ways that attackers get in. So you don't need all of those unused identities that were sitting there. The other thing too is the fact that organizations are realizing the importance of runtime prioritization. And over the last 3 years or so, we've seen a significant decrease in the number of critical and high vulnerabilities present in an environment, because organizations are prioritizing vulnerabilities in use first, because the ones in a non-production environment, your training environment, aren't as important as the vulnerabilities that are running in production. So we have this really cool graphic where we rack and stack number of vulnerabilities, ones that are in use, if they have an exploit available or not, because most vulnerabilities are not exploitable. But again, obviously, if they are, that's going to be more of a priority in production than those that can't be exploited by an attacker. So we've seen some amazing progress. I think 3 years ago, it started with like 15-20% critical and high vulnerabilities in use. And now we're down to like 5%, 4%, something like that. But seeing that change over time has been fantastic. Measuring security maturity, like we said, has been really cool. So I love doing that comparison every year.
And this is one of the big benefits of doing runtime security, right? Of actually being able to see what's actually executing and what isn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So big thank you to you coming out of bed. I don't know what time is it over in the US for you?
It's 8:45 now, so it's not
8:45. So it's getting breakfast time anyway. But huge thank. I mean, this is a really interesting report. I know that Kai posted the link in the chat that actually goes to the report on our homepage, the Nordic version, and the full version is also available from Sysdig, of course, to download and dive into. I cannot see any questions in the chat, so I think we will round this off. Kenneth, any last wishes to the audience?
No, just check out the report. It was a very interesting read. Inside the report is also a link to the global report, so it's super easy to find. And so just go ahead and read it.
So thank you, Crystal. And if anyone comes up with any more questions after this, you know where to find us at Conoa. So just shoot them out, and we'll get back with the answers or findings for you guys. So with that, I round this off and say thank you to everyone that participated. This one's going to be posted on the YouTube channel as usual for anyone else that you want to share this with. And I think we have one more session before we take Christmas. I'm not sure when it's going to happen. Kai has scheduled, but you will see that in the Meetup channel. So take care, everyone, and big thank you to Crystal.
Thank you so much. Take care, guys.
Kubernetes med Conoa.